Hello students. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can create an application with two buttons in the QtDesigner. So we'll have button 1 and button 2, and how you can use the UI that you created in the QtDesigner in your own Python program. So first, let's draw this user interface in the designer. So here's I have the designer. So I'm going to create a new widget. And I'm going to use a vertical layout because I'm going to have my button laid out vertically. So I'm going to resize this. And I'm going to put a couple of buttons in there. And you see here, as you put things in the vertical layout, it arranges itself and space itself out into a nice format where it's evenly spaced. And here, if you go to the property editor, you can see that the object name is form. So that means in your Python program, you can refer to this as form. I'm going to call it two button form. And the title itself that's visible, that's not controlled by this name. It's controlled by a property called title. And let's change this to two button. And you can see as I change this, it changed the display here. Now let's change the name of the button. So there's again object name, so that's the variable name. So I'm going to call it top button. And the text itself is a property called text. So if you just scroll down, you see that there's a property called text here. I'm going to call it button 1. So this is just a display text. The actual name of the button is top button. And I'm going to call this the bottom button. And I'm going to change the text to button 2. And I'm going to save this UI, and it will create a file called .ui file. Now, when you save this file, make sure you name this appropriately. So the name, the file name cannot start with a number. So don't call it two button with 2 like this, because that's going to cause problem. And don't use a name that contains space. So here I'm saving my UI file, and I'm calling it two buttons. So notice here, no space, and it does not start with a number. And here I have VS Code, and I've opened the directory that contained the UI file. So I put that in Qt walkthrough, and you could see that the file is in there. So if I click here, it will open the file. And this is just an XML file, a text file that you can open directly using a text editor, such as Visual Studio. Now, this needs to be converted into a Python file so that we can use it as a module in our program. To do that, I'm going to open a command prompt. So Visual Studio actually will allow you to open a command prompt. All you need to do is terminal, new terminal. And on a Mac, this will open the terminal program. On Windows, this will open PowerShell. If you're more used to the command prompt, you can open the drop down here and click the command prompt instead. And this is the usual Windows command prompt in here. To convert this UI file to a Python file that you can import into your program, you need a tool called Python GUI compiler 5. That's the 5 is because it's coming with PyQt5. So as you move forward in the version, this will change to 6 and so on. And what's the output file? I'm going to call it two buttons Py, and the input is going to be the UI file. and press enter. So this works correctly because I already set the path to this tool. If you have an error saying that this tool is not found, you can find a set of instruction on how you can fix this on Blackboard. Okay, so now I have two files. I have the .ui file, which is this, and I have a .py file, which is this one. So this is a class, and it's a class written in Python, generated by the tool. And I can import this as a module and use this in my own UI widget. So let's create a new Python script. I'm going to call this toButtons driver. Now, the driver program PyQt is actually very similar. So I'm going to paste the template here, and you can find a link to the template under this video. So here I have the template pasted, and I have to adjust the template so that the file name will use the correct Python file name. So I want this to change to toButtons. And this class, I need to change that to the correct class name. And what's the correct class name? We need to figure it out. And you see here there's an error because it's actually case sensitive. I need to fix this so that this is capital B. And the class name, you see here, this is the class name. So copy this and paste it to replace this one. And this is the template for a form with toButtons. And we were using a widget for the designer, so this should be QWidget. And now let's make sure that everything else is handled correctly. So my buttons, they're not called button 1 and button 2, they're called top button and bottom button. So let's have a look at what's going on here. So here you could see there is top button and bottom button. So that's the name that I should use. So this name will be available in my class because this notation says that I am going to inherit everything that is set up in here. So that means the top button and the bottom button that's getting set up in the setup UI here, which is being called here, is going to be accessible in here. What's going on here? Something happened. Oh, I pasted the wrong thing. Hold on. So button 2 becomes bottom button. There we go. So this looks pretty good. So we can try running it. So these two lines, they're called the signal and slot arrangement. So this means when the top button receives a signal, and that signal is a mouse click, this entry in the slot will be invoked. So handle 1 will be called whenever the top button is pressed, and handle 2 will be called whenever the bottom button is clicked. So this is how we set it up. So let's try this. So I have a form with toButtons, and when I press the top button, you can see that button 1 click is printed, button 2 click is printed. In this example, you learn how you can create a UI using QtDesigner, and you learn how you can convert the UI into a Python module like this, and you learn how to use this Python module in your own program, and you learn how to hook up the signal with a handler that you put in the slot here. I hope this video helped. Bye now.